things to believe it. Or sometimes they say that religion is blind faith because we don't see it. Therefore, it's not a reality because I can't perceive it. I can't see it with my senses. But seeing is not everything. I remember one time in Montreal Temple, there was a Sunday feast. And during that feast, they were serving beautiful sweet rice. So, of course, everyone was very happy. Nice sweet rice. But unfortunately, the cook had put salt instead of sugar in the sweet rice. So when we all tasted that sweet rice, it was actually horrible. You can just imagine, right? You're looking from some nice sweet rice, and it's salt. So the cook had seen what he had put in, but he saw a white crystal thinking it was sugar, but it was actually salt. So although he was seeing, he was not able to see that this was not sugar. And although we were seeing the sweet rice, we weren't able to detect that it was salt rather than sugar. So seeing has its limits. Of course, then by tasting it, which is another of the senses, we could perceive. Now we could understand that it wasn't sugar, but it was salt. So that's another means of gathering a certain reality, seeing, tasting. But if someone had come up in the Prasadam hall and had announced to everybody, please don't take this sweet rice, there's been a mistake and there's salt in it, then through hearing, we would have gathered the same information. So then you have seeing, tasting, hearing, and then sometimes smelling. Sometimes you can smell something and you can tell that it was burnt. Sometimes we do burn sweet rice, milk burns quickly. So you can smell it and say, okay, something's burnt, or this is not fresh. This is turning. I'm not going to taste this because I know it's not, it's kind of smell fermented. So smelling is another means of getting knowledge. So we have seeing, we have tasting, we have hearing, we have smelling. These are the ways by which we gather information. And we also have touching. Sometimes someone is presenting something to us and we say, let me see it. Let me see it means I want to touch it. I want to grab it. I want to see it with my hands. Sometimes when I go with Sarada, we go and buy fabrics for the deities for sewing. And we see some very nice colored fabrics. But when you touch it, you realize this is too thick. It's too rough. It's not soft enough. It's not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to sew it properly. So although we saw a very nice color and it looked very beautiful, but when you come to touch it, you find out, no, it's not the quality. It's not what we're looking for. So these are the means by which people, through their sense perception, understand reality. But sometimes that reality is distorted, or because of ignorance or false information, people get cheated. A person invests his money in a person thinking that I will make so much in return. So he's anticipating that kind of reality. But now later on, he finds out that person cheated him. The person who took his money disappeared. So his reality falls apart because he's not going to get the money he was intending to get. He's losing everything. Or sometimes you think your wife really loves you and she gives you divorce paper the next day. And you realize, wow, what's going on here? So your reality was you were thinking, wow, I'm in a loving relationship, everything's fine. Or the wife finds out the husband cheated her, took off or had an affair with some other woman. So these are things that go on in the material world. We have a certain reality that is there based on our senses, but that is an imperfect vision of what reality is about. So Jiva Goswami describes in the Shitattva Sandarbha this particular aspect we just described, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, is one of the 10 pramanas. Pramanas means knowledge or the ability to acquire knowledge. How do we get knowledge? How do we receive knowledge? So pratyaksha is, that means sense, direct perception. Just like when there's a court case, they try to unite, get witnesses, people who are on site, who saw what happened, who were eyewitness, who were there. So pratyaksha means that, means someone who is using his senses, who's perceiving that directly. But that is one of the 10 means by which we gather knowledge. After that, you have anumana. Anumana means inference or conclusion. Just like we know that smoke, that fire creates smoke. So if we see at a distance, we see smoke, we can conclude, amana, we can conclude that there must be fire. But that is also imperfect in the sense that it may be fire. We're not seeing the fire, but we're seeing smoke, and we conclude there must be some fire. But it could also be fog in the morning, dew, that is creating that seemingly. Or it could be a dust storm. So there is no fire, but we're perceiving that. But generally speaking, we can conclude if there's smoke, there's fire. Then there's sabda. Sabda means, like Sabda Brahman, sabda means hearing. We're hearing transcendental vibration. We're hearing information from others. People read the news. They read newspapers, so forth. They try to get information. So sound is one of the means to gather knowledge. Hearing from others, hopefully authoritative person, someone who's authoritative, who's got the real facts, not fake news. Or the scriptures. We follow, Vaishnavas follow scriptures. So these are means of gathering knowledge through sabda. Then upamana. Upamana means comparison. You compare something. Just like if someone doesn't know what a zebra is, but he knows what a horse looks like. So you can say, well, a zebra looks like a horse, except it's got stripes. So that way a person can compare, okay, now I can get understanding what a zebra must look like, what a zebra is, because I know what a horse is, what a horse looks like. So you have comparison. This is another means of gathering knowledge. And then arthapati, assumption. You assume something. Just like if you say, this person, Devata, whatever his name is, that person is fat, but you never see him eating during the day. So you have to assume that he must eat at night because he's fat. He's not starving. So there's an assumption there that is created. You're not seeing him eat, but you can assume that he must be eating because he's fat. So that is arthapati. Then you have abhaya or abhava or anupalabdhi, which is something you don't perceive, slightly different. You don't perceive. Just like in Montreal, if you've been to the temple there, and especially in the Prasadam hall, you'll notice there are many plants in planters. So I may never see anyone watering those plants. There's no perception of that. But because the plants are healthy, I can understand that someone must be taking care of these plants. Otherwise, they die. So you can conclude something, even though you're not perceiving it directly, but you can conclude that this is taking place. Then sambhava, inclusion. Inclusion is another means of gathering knowledge, which means that if you see $100, you know automatically there's 20, there's 10, there's $5 within that $100. So you're inclusive. Inclusion means that you can conclude that it must be there because you know the value of $100. Then there's atiya, which means tradition, either folk tale or something that's been going on for generation. People have been repeating for generations information. So you can't prove it, but because it's been going on for generations, from father to son, you can conclude there must be some basic truth to it. Like in India, if you go there, they say that the Red Fort the fort in Delhi was built by the Pandavas. So they say that. You go in the Red Fort, there's a lot of stores and things and boutiques. But if you ask them who, they say, oh, Pandavas, Hastinapur. But no one can prove it. There's no proof of that. But it's just been going on. Maybe it's just to make that place more popular and you'll get more tourists because I don't know. But they say that. So this is a way that knowledge sometimes is given through tradition. Even Krishna was asking his father during the lifting of Govardhan. He was saying Nanda Maharaj preparing some sacrifice and so forth. So he was asking his father, is this traditional? Is this something that we do? In other words, he was asking, is this something I'm going to have to learn? Because is it tradition? I don't know what's going on. So he was asking Nanda Maharaj, is this a tradition? Is this something that our family, our descendants have been doing? So tradition is a means of gathering knowledge. Chesta. Chesta is another means of gathering knowledge, which is symbols or gestures. Just like if I do this, then people know it means peace or victory, right? Or if I make, some kind of face, then you can understand by my gesture that I'm not pleased or I'm angry. I haven't said anything, but I've just demonstrated to my facial expression that I'm not very happy. Or like sometimes Krishna, when he would eat prasadam, the food that Radharani would cook, he would make faces as if he didn't like it, just to tease Radharani, because Radharani would come and cook every day. She was blessed by Durvasa Muni that everything that she cooked, the person eating that would have longevity. So knowing that she had received that blessing, Mother Yashoda would ask Radharani, please come and cook for my son, Krishna. And then Parishesha. Parishesha means elimination, or you eliminate. Just like sometimes you have your office, your desk cluttered with stuff. So it's very difficult to find what you're looking for. So you start eliminating things, putting things aside, clearing the space, eliminating things so that gradually you can see clearly what you're looking for. So that is another means of getting knowledge. Of course, all these processes have goods and bad, but they're not perfect. They limit the living entity to understand what is real reality. Therefore, the Vaishnavas, their means of gathering reality is actually the Shastra, the Guru, and the Sadhus. They refer their knowledge to that. Of course, we use our senses. We don't deny our senses. We use our faculties, but we rely on them. Just like a pilot, when a pilot is flying a plane and of such a high altitude, it's very difficult for the pilot to know exactly, is he going north, south, east, west? Is he going high, low? There's no bearing for him to know these things. So the authority that he has is the gauges that are on the plane that are telling him you're flying at 30,000 feet in altitude. This is the pressure. This is the north. You're going this way, that way. This is the speed. All these things, he has to rely on these gauges because he can't rely on, but he's using his senses to perceive these things. So the Vaishnava, the devotee, his reality, his ability to perceive what is real is based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And therefore we say, Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjala Shalakaya, that the spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. He came in and gave me real transcendental knowledge to understand what is the real reality, not that I'm this body and this material world is all in all. So, and when the disciple takes shelter of the spiritual master, becomes a shishya, he takes shiksha from the guru, and he gets twice born. Brahminical initiation means you were materially born with this body, but Brahminical initiation means twice born. Now you've been born into a transcendental understanding of what reality is. And we also, with that, there is also the 12 Mahajans that Dharmaraj, when the Yamadutas came to him being bewildered. They were trying to grab Ajamil, and they were stopped by the Vishnudutas. So they were wondering, who are these Vishnudutas that have the authority to stop us? We are under the jurisdiction and direction of Yamaraj. We are the Yamadutas. This is our function. This is what we do. We capture people who have been very sinful and we bring them for punishment. But these Vishnudutas have come and interfered. So they went back to Yamaraj, bewildered and saying, aren't you the supreme authority? Aren't you an authority? And Yamaraj said, no. Swayambhu Narada Sambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Pralado Janako Bhishmo Balya Vivashake Vayam. He said that, no, I'm one of the authorities, but there are Brahma, Narada, Shiva, 4 Kumaras, Kapila, the son of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu. There's Prahlad, Janaka Maharaj, who's the father of Sita, the wife of Lord Ramachandra, Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, and myself. So these Mahajans are the great authorities by which everyone refers to try to understand Vedic teachings. So for a devotee, and if we read Bhagavad Gita, we find that one of the components that we must look at when we try to understand what is reality, it describes in the Bhagavad Gita that those who are seers of the truth have concluded that the non-existence, there is no endurance, and of the existence, there is no sensation. These seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. So one of the components of what reality, it must be permanent. It must be sat. Asat means temporary, which means it cannot be a real reality. Although the Mayavadis say that this material existence is false, the Vaishnavas, we don't say it's false, but we say it's temporary. It's real, but it's temporary. And because of its temporary nature, we don't consider it a reality. It's there, but it's temporary. Just like a dream, yeah, you had the dream, but that dream is temporary. Therefore, it's not that significant. So this is one of the, you could say, the components or the aspects that a Vaishnava would consider in defining what is reality. Is it permanent or is it temporary? If it's temporary, it doesn't really have a real existence. So another aspect is in the Bhagavatam, Devahuti is glorifying Lord Kapila, and she's saying, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and the Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to dissipate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of ignorance of this universe. In other words, the Lord, when he incarnates to remove the ignorance or darkness. Ignorance means what? Ignoring that we're spirit souls. So the Lord's business is to educate, as he spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, to educate the living entity about his nature, his transcendental nature, that he's not material, but that he's spiritual. So this would be another component of what reality is for a Vaishnava, that it must be freed of ignorance. There must be full knowledge of, just like if I say, listen, do you want some apple or orange? You say, okay, I'll take an orange. Oh, wait a minute, there's also mangoes. They'll say, well, I'll take a mango. Okay. So that's the problem with material understanding with the senses, is that there's so many components or things we don't know. Like the scientists are always researching, trying to find out what is our origin. They go to Mars, they go here, they go all over the place, trying to figure out. And based on the little bit of knowledge, they draw conclusions. But those conclusions are always changing, because as I mentioned, if I say apples and orange, you take it, say an orange, but you don't know there's actually a mango. So if I introduce a mango, it changes the whole thing. Then okay, I'm not going to take the orange, I'm going to take the mango. So these scientists, because they don't know everything, they're like, at night you walk around with a flashlight. You can see a few things, but it has nothing to, it cannot be compared to when the sun rises. When the sun rises, everything is illuminated. So this is what the Vaishnavas, what their reality or their framework or their means of knowledge to understand reality is based on Guru Sadhu Shastra, the scriptures that they're revealing transcendental knowledge, like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Then you have the Guru who is teaching that, and the sadhus who are setting the example. And then you can inquire from them to see, are you applying yourself properly, and are you understanding the Shastras properly? So therefore you have that guidance. And we understand that Krishna, as Lord Brahma, when he first did tapasya, the Lord manifested himself and told him this famous verse, Aham evasam evagre nanyadyat sarasat param paschadaham yaditascha yo sovishyeta sospyaham. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself, nor was there material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. So Krishna is the source of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadi Radhe Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. He's the Karana, the cause of everything. And he existed prior to his creation. He had to exist prior to anything else. If he created everything, he had to be there before that creation. So therefore, Lord Brahma worships Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhujami. He worships Lord Krishna. So this is reality for the devotee. Now, the duality, what is that duality that we incur? Duality, it's just like if we take, let's say, $1,000 and I place that on the table at one end, and I take one of those big fancy lollipops, nicely colored, and I put it on the other side. Now, in the room, I let people file in and I ask them to choose either the $1,000 or the lollipop. Every adult we know, there's no doubt, it's absolute that they will all take the money. There's no adult that's going to take a lollipop when there's $1,000 sitting on that table. Now, if we do the opposite, we bring children, boys and girls in the room. What will they take? We all know, absolutely, they'll all take the lollipop. Now, why? Because the children don't know the value of money. An adult knows the value of $1,000. Just like when people win the lottery, they win $20 million. They're jumping up and down, all excited. And sometimes they're interviewed, oh, what are you going to do with that $20 million? They won $20 million, they're excited. So they say, oh, well, we'll pay off our loans and we'll do this, and I can buy a car, I can take a trip to Italy, I always wanted to go. They see the possibility of that money. So they're elated. So an adult knows the possibility what money will give them. Therefore, absolutely, we can tell that every adult will take the money. While a child, what is his problem? He's not developed. He doesn't know the value of money. Therefore, he'll take the lollipop. So a devotee, the duality that a devotee comes is that his conditioning, Nitya Bhada, he's conditioned to identify with the body and with that reality that he's been perceiving throughout his life. What have they been telling him? They call it false narrative nowadays, or false news. So we've received such false narrative that you're the body, you're a Canadian, you're French Canadian, you're this, you're that, you're Indian, and so forth. Bodily identification. So that conditioning is there. Not only in this life, but in millions of lifetimes, we've identified ourselves with this material energy. Therefore, our tendency is to choose material energy rather than choosing Krishna, because we are spiritual children. Therefore, when we start getting transcendental information, there's a struggle. To what extent are we prepared to accept that information? And to what extent are we prepared to live based on that information? So the neophyte devotee, beginner, He's like a flashing light. He's on and off. Sometimes he's on. He likes Krishna consciousness. Sometimes he's struggling and he gets off and so forth. But as he progresses spiritually, just like the child, if the child stays with the parents, the family, which means the parents, the uncles, the grandparents, all the ones that surround him, he'll eventually become an adult and he'll eventually be appreciating money. That's just an example, ordinary example, mundane example we can say, but just to drive the point, he will be able to appreciate the value of money as he gets older, as he becomes an adult. So ourselves spiritually, as we become adults in Krishna consciousness, as we progress, surrounded by our spiritual master, the father, the uncles, those who are god brothers of that spiritual master are guiding us, the grandparents, such as Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, will also become mature. As the Bhagavad Gita says, Bahunam Janmanamante, Jnanamam Prapajyate, Vasudevam Savarmiti, Samahatma Sadulabha. After many, many lifetimes, one who's actually knowledge surrenders unto me. It becomes very obvious, as much as we know absolutely that any adult will take the $1,000, we know absolutely that we should surrender to Krishna. There's no more duality when one progresses spiritually. It becomes an absolute. It becomes a very natural thing to surrender to Krishna. There is no other options for a devotee. Why? Because he sees the benefit of surrendering to Krishna. As much people see some benefit in getting all this money, they can travel, they can buy a car, they can pay off their debts, whatever. The devotee sees how much Krishna consciousness will open the door to him. The benefit of becoming a devotee and offering oneself to Krishna. Therefore, he no longer struggles, as Krishna said, Mamaivam sho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashastam indriyani prakristani karshati, that the living entity are parts and parcels, but they're struggling with the six senses, which includes the mind. They're struggling. Why? Because those very senses from day one have given them false narrative, false information that infuse that devotee or convince that person that you're the body. And modern society is all about that, to make us believe that we're this body, we're the enjoyer, we're going to do all this nonsense. So a devotee, as he matures, he no longer has that struggle, no longer has that duality of accepting and rejecting, being influenced by the senses and the material objects that are attracting the senses, that are distracting the devotees from being absorbed and becoming Ekaya Kurunandana, fixed in his determination towards Krishna. He no longer sees the value of material energy, just like the adult doesn't see much value in the lollipop. He can appreciate that may be good for a child, but it's not for me. I'm going to take the money. So certainly a devotee sees other people may do all their things, fine, but for me, there's only Krishna. That's the only thing that is valuable. And because he's absorbed in that way, everything he sees reminds him of Krishna. When he sees plants, he's amazed to see how Krishna has created these things. He's just amazed. Anything he perceives and sees, it becomes a constant meditation. He's in smaranam, he's in remembrance of Krishna, and he's ultimately in samadhi, because everything he sees reminds him of Krishna, and he's always in awe and reverence to see, wow, Krishna is so extraordinary. Look what he created, how he did it. Look at this little ant. Look at this little bird, how it's singing. You see it, like now I go in my backyard, weather's nice. You hear so many different birds singing, and they all have different sounds, Who created all this variety of sounds? Each bird decide, okay, I'm going to pick this note, I'm going to pick this sound. No, someone had to do that for them. That was Krishna. So devotee immediately hears a bird singing, immediately is reminded of Krishna. Just see what Krishna, he looks at the bird's colored feathers and so forth, immediately is reminded of Krishna. Just see how he sees I see different animals, like I see rabbits in my backyard. I look at these rabbits and think, wow, just see how Krishna decorated, made these things, these little rabbits, big ears and, little shiny eyes. And then you see there's squirrels and all sorts of animals. And you just by looking at these things, you cannot be but Krishna conscious. You just look at everything. Even the materialists, you can see, oh, just see how Krishna has given this person the intelligence to accomplish this, to do that. He has this talent. Krishna has given all this to everyone. So for a devotee, it becomes very absolute. There is no more duality. The only thing he can see, the only thing he can think about is Krishna. And therefore, that becomes his reality. But it is based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and the effort. Atashi Krishna namave nabhavet gramindriya, that one cannot perceive Krishna just by his senses. But when he applies himself in the process of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, the process of Krishna consciousness awakens this Krishna consciousness. Because in the beginning, we're talking about sense perception, how the senses, through those senses, we acquire knowledge, pratyaksha. But pratyaksha is also an internal, external, but an internal also approach. Just like internally, I can sense someone's emotion. I can sense someone if this person's happy, if the person is sad, if the person is angry. There's an emotional internal component to that pratyaksha. So similarly, Krishna consciousness awakens that internal feeling for Krishna. As we apply ourselves to Krishna, we start feeling Krishna. And Krishna reveals himself gradually to us. If we become Bhakto Sime Sakacheti, we become a devotee of Krishna, and we're not envious of him. That's what Krishna told Arjuna, that because you're never envious of me, I'm revealing myself to you. So our readiness to serve Krishna, to submit to Krishna's desire, to try to please Krishna, is an indication that we're not envious of him. This is what we're trying to demonstrate to Krishna. And Krishna, I'm not envious of you anymore. I used to be. I wanted to be you, but now I'm ready to surrender to you. And then by that practice, then the devotee is no longer subjected to duality, but he comes to the platform of absolute, where he only sees Krishna and everything else in relation to Krishna. So I'll stop here, and I'll ask dear Prabhus if you can please give me some questions, and I will try to answer as best as I can. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Really nice practical tips. I like your. I always find when I listen to you speak, you are like the analogy king. You have so many practical analogies that you bring out, and it's really nice because it really helps us to relate to these topics, which in themselves kind of sometimes it's abstract, but when you explain it in this way, it's much more easier to follow. So thank you very much, dear devotees. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand at the bottom of the Zoom. There is a reactions tab there, and you could click on that, and then you can press the hand icon and ask your question. Also, Prabhu, one thing I wanted to mention when you were talking about devotees, seeing Krishna and everything, and the birds, how they're singing, and it's a whole an orchestra, and how nice and beautiful it is. It was just the other week. I was driving in the car, and they have this program on CBC radio, and it's like, I think it was like for an hour. It was one or 2 hours. It was just tracks. Somebody laid down a track, and all it was is just bird sounds, right? Bird sounds, and the trees moving in the background, and some water, and somebody, very popular artist, he found the technology to be able to capture it, and like there is a following. People really just like to just listen to that because there's something about the sounds of nature that's very calming. Right, and people listen to nice music because it's nice, and that's fabricated by people, right? We're making these different concoctions and creations, and I guess indirectly it's also energy of Krishna. But I just thought that was interesting how you're talking about the whole symphony, and naturally Krishna created this beautiful symphony, and it's out there in the world. It's all the interactions of all the other living entities, and yeah, if one just tunes into it, it's you can really derive an appreciation.
Yeah, for devotees, it enhances our appreciation. For karmis or materialists, it bewilders them because they really can't fathom how a person could have made all this. So for them, it's, yeah, it's evolution. I mean, it's very difficult, and therefore, bhakti is not gyan. Bhakti is another thing. For even Brahma became bewildered when he saw that Krishna was playing as a coward boy. He had a hard time believing that that was his supreme lord. So he tested Krishna by stealing all the coward boys. Then he realized that, yeah, this is the same supreme personality of Godhead. But even Lord Brahma was bewildered. So for most people to try to understand God, that God created all this, it's very difficult. But the problem is that you can be in awe and reverence of the environment and the birds and all these different things, but you can't love it. It's a little bit like the universal form. It's so big. How are you going to love it? How are you going to serve it? But when you're a devotee, you can appreciate that. You can be in awe of nature, but at the same time, knowing that it's coming from Krishna, you can offer a devotion to it by offering devotion to Krishna, and you can express your love by worshiping Krishna. So everyone's looking for love, but they don't know how to express it. But a devotee, he's in bliss because he knows how to express his love. Just bowing down to Krishna becomes a moment of ecstasy for a devotee. He realizes that I'm given such a great privilege to be able to just bow down to Krishna, something that I could not do for millions of years. Such a simple act. We might think, oh, I can bow down. No, you can't. If Krishna doesn't allow you to bow down, you won't be able to bow down. You won't have the mentality, the mindset, the consciousness that will allow you to do that act. But when you become a devotee, you do that and you realize, I am so fortunate to be able to do that. Why? Because that simple act will purchase Krishna. Krishna will become indebted to me. And therefore, Krishna doesn't allow everyone to do that. He doesn't want to be purchased by people who are not devotees. So it's a very rare thing. Sometimes we wonder why no one's taking to Krishna consciousness, because Manushanam Sahasreshu, out of 1,000, hardly one knows me in truth. And the practices of bhakti that we're performing will bring about that revelation of Krishna. So the devotee, not only can he be in awe and reverence of material nature, but he can apply himself in such a way that he can demonstrate love towards the person who has manifested all this.
I guess it's a way of reciprocating, like you're saying, showing love. So if you have an appreciation, right, how do you express that appreciation, right? You don't say, oh, it's just wow, but you're just saying it right now. You can just reciprocate it directly with Lord Krishna.
Yeah, appreciation is the beginning, but then rendering service is the more mature level. Appreciation is one thing, but if I appreciate how great you are, then the next thing is I want to serve you. I want to serve something that's great. And most people want to do something and serve certain things that's greater than us, than ourselves. Why do people join the army or become police officers? Or they want to be part of something greater than themselves. And that's natural, because normally we want to be greater than ourselves. We want to participate in something greater than ourselves. And the greatest thing is to worship Krishna. But that's where the living entity finds its full satisfaction in the art or in the practice of offering oneself to something greater than ourselves. And the greatest, of course, is Krishna. So for a devotee, he's living ecstasy at every moment, and he's never in a state of duality as if he's matured, because he's always in the platform of absolute. He knows Krishna is the greatest. So it's easy to focus, to be absorbed. And as I mentioned earlier, everything reminds him of Krishna.
All right. Thank you. So devotees, are there any other questions or comments? I know there's plenty. It's just devotees are taking a lot of time to write down and type up their questions right now. So it's taking a while for them to manifest them.
It can be on this, or it can be on any other topic. I'm open. I mean, don't be shy. I don't bite. Don't be shy. Even if I wanted to, I'm too far. Too far away to bite this time.
Oh, we have Surrender Prabhu. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Nice to see you.
It was very nice, Prabhuji. And it's just a little comment, and then you can add to it. What is your opinion? You explained that duality is a very, very important thing. And what happens is, I mean, people have options to hear everything, but what happens is they accept which suits them. They will come to the temple, they hear a lecture from sannyasi, and sannyasi means sannyasi who has understood, and that's why he reached that stage. He's not an ordinary person. You cannot compare that person with anyone else. He's 100% there. He says something, and then they come out, that's his opinion. They compare his opinion with like any other. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there are opinions, but we have to come to a conclusion that the opinions are belonging to others, but he is not giving his opinion.
Mhm.
And he is giving what he has learned and what he has experienced. In Hindi, we call it anubhuti and all those words. But and this where the duality is, because we don't know the value. And especially from Vyasa-san, the instructions are not lollipop. They are pretty much, straightforward, direct statements. They don't polish generally those when they are giving lectures. The polishing only comes later on when you are on the side, because they don't tell directly. And if we develop that to the strength, as you just said, is by serving, that strength will come to accept those instructions as it is, and then the duality will be eradicated. Because the master of all the duality is the accepting the instructions. The rest of all other dualities are servant of this main thing. Is that what is the main duality? Is that we are not accepting Shabda Praman, which is the proof of the scriptures, but we are accepting something else, which is imperfect, because that is suiting us, our need, or it's been said other than the scriptures, which is the personal opinions. So
Yeah, of course. Well, that as we mentioned a little bit is due to conditioning. We're conditioned, and secondhand habit. So if I accept the teachings or the instruction that sannyasi is given, there's a consequence to that. I'm going to have to surrender to it. Just like if you say the house is on fire and I just turn on the left side, they'll say there's something wrong with this fellow. He obviously doesn't understand what fire means, the danger he's in. But if I understand what fire means and the house is on fire, I'm going to run out as fast as I can to save myself. So Maya is that illusion that makes everything seem okay. Like, I'm not going to die. That was Maharaj Parikshit's point, is that the greatest illusion or wonder of this world is we see other people dying, we see other people suffering, but we think that's not going to happen to me. You see? So because we're in a comfortable situation and in that kind of illusion, we're not taking the sadhu's instructions seriously. So sometimes Krishna, there's a school of hard knocks. Sometimes we go through suffering. And when we suffer, we've all experienced, when we get sick, anyone who's sick becomes naturally humble, because everything's so painful that anyone who gives us an advice, my grandmother had this medicine and this way. Okay, I'm gonna try anything. I'm no longer proud and bold and say, what's that? No, I'm sick. Please give me any advice. I'm prepared to take that advice. So this material world is a place of suffering. Dukalayama Shasvatam, at every step. But unfortunately, most people don't think it's misery. And what is the materialistic effort? To try to create the material energy and make it in such a way that we're going to enjoy it. We're not going to suffer this material energy. Vedic culture means get away, get away from this, material energy. But now, now that you have your human form of life, inquire about spirituality. Don't depend on material energy. But the materialist is that material energy will bring us some success. Material energy will just manipulate it this way and that way, and we'll suck out some pleasure. So unfortunately, those people who are addicted to material life won't take the sadhu's association, or will not take his instruction very seriously. But by repeated association, if we can get that person to more often associate, then the fear of surrender, because surrender, there's a fear, there's an element, you're insecure. If I surrender to you, but you don't give me shelter, I'm stuck. So Krishna says, those who surrender, I will give them shelter. So it's a little bit when you're walking on ice, you're putting one step, but you got to make sure you're not going to fall through that ice. Then when you feel solid, you'll make a second step. But if you feel that you're going to go through the ice, you're not going to continue. You're not going to step on the ice. So most people are afraid that this spiritual energy, right, is not going to give me the shelter. Well, the tangible, what I touch, what I see, seemingly gives me shelter. I have money, boy, now I'm secure. You see. But so a devotee has to reassure. We reassure how? We reassure by setting the example that we're doing that. Just like we see Niranjana Maharaj is always setting a wonderful example of someone who's taken shelter of Krishna. So when we see him, we become inspired that here's a person's not only speaking, but he's doing. So if he can do it, maybe I can try. It's an encouragement. So achar, prachar, speaking but acting. Acharya means one who's actually acting on that principle. And through that association, we develop faith, we develop conviction, we become reassured that it's possible. And then gradually people will take the instruction seriously. They'll hear the words and they'll take it seriously. And if we can give tangible and applicable instruction, like Prabhupada used to say, this is not just armchair philosophy, but there has to be practicality. So we have to be able to give the medicine, not to kill the patient, but in such a way that the person will gradually get cured. And sometimes we may have to put a little sugar in that medicine. It may appear bitter, but by taking it gradually, so, we have things, nice kirtan, nice prasadam. People, I don't know what these Hare Krishna are about, but I really like their food. Okay, eat the food and you'll become purified. And then from that, these are nice people. I like them, they say far out stuff, they have this blue God, right? So they become a little attracted. And the devotees are in the mode of goodness. They're nice. They're not antagonistic. They're not judging people. They're compassionate. They're understanding. They're shanti. They're peaceful. So people like, hey, it's a nice vibration. I like to be with these guys. They have a nice vibration. And then, okay, chant. And as gradually, Chaitodarpanam Marjanam, they'll get purified. Their hearts will get cleansed. And then they'll gradually become devotees. And then they'll embrace those instructions. They'll want to guide their lives because they'll see the benefit of applying these instructions in their lives and how their lives are being transformed. So that is the process, that we cannot expect everyone to take it seriously. But if we give them our association, just like Prabhupada did, he gave us his association and we took it seriously because we saw he was serious. And we could see that he was in bliss. Anyone who would see Prabhupada, all the devotees, disciples of Prabhupada, we would look at Prabhupada, we wanted to be like him. We could see he had it, he was in bliss. He was different. We'd never seen such a person. So he was like a magnet. We were drawn towards him. We wanted to become like him, So that is the influence also of a sadhu, that by his character, his personality, his shakti, he draws us in, he attracts us towards Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. We have one more question here from Matthew Prabhu. We got a hand up. Matthew.
Matthew.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The sound is okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Just
Okay.
we don't see you.
Okay, let me try it. Let me try that.
Personality. There he is. Haribo.
Hare Krishna. So, Babu, we had a presentation yesterday on through like the North American ISKCON about Krishna House in Gainesville, Florida. I'm not sure if you're familiar with their program, but it was very inspiring, and they laid it out quite, I guess, convincingly how this is a recipe for success. So I don't know if you want to comment either directly on the program, or if what would your input be if we wanted to explore this further, if you had any guidance or any feedback.
Well, I'm not too sure about these days what they're exactly doing. I remember visiting this way back with Niranjana Maharaj was there. He's a young sannyasi, and it was nice to be with him for a while. I think it was maybe in 82 or 84, I forget now. But I know Kalakanta is doing a wonderful job, who's managing that. But specifically, I don't know. But any program that we're doing, the main thing is to give our association to others. Through our association, they'll become devotees. Sadhu Sangha is the thing. So if we can create a program, if we can create an environment by which we can attract people, like in the early days in Ottawa, I started the dinner program, and we had the restaurant, which was more, official, you could say. There was not much Krishna consciousness. It was there, a few books, but was really subdued. People would just come and eat, and we try to create a little atmosphere, a little music, but not much preaching, unless someone inquired on their own. But then we had the dinner program, which was more of a preaching program there, where people come and we would give a class and we would discuss and inquire, people would inquire, ask questions. And it was kind of, a little bit more of a structured, but still open, to give people a chance to express themselves and their doubts or whatever. And there would be some nice prasadam. And what we would do is we would put invitation cards to all the health food stores in Ottawa, where people could come and experience a free vegetarian meal. So, these are different ideas can be presented. And those people would, the restaurant was operating, and then next door, the top apartment was the brahmacharya ashram, but that was where we would do that program of dinner program, where people were invited, and that was free. They didn't have to pay. It was a free meal, and that was going on every night. But the idea was just, devotees are lovable people, So if you just show, an openness to the people and try to help people understand, break the cultural difference, and help people understand that, that we have wonderful philosophy, we have wonderful food, we have wonderful music, then naturally people become enchanted and they start coming, and then you start helping people individually. What is their situation? Just like a doctor, you describe where the symptoms, and he tries to ascertain what is the disease, and he gives you different medicine appropriately to your condition. So devotee is like a transcendental doctor. He tries to befriend the person, try to understand where you're at, try to encourage them in different ways, and try to, whatever the person is doing, is add a little bhakti into that, So he's got a 0, you put a 1, he's got 10, he's got 100. Try to put that one aspect of Krishna consciousness to the person. So that would be the way. But it requires someone that is free to do that, because you have to give your time, and Mukunda Maharaj describes that the first time he met Srila Prabhupada, he was a musician himself, and he used to go backstage whenever there was bands performing. His pleasure was to go backstage and meet the artists. And he noticed that every time these guys were busy, they didn't mind having a big audience, but they didn't want to befriend the person, So they're all busy. But when he met Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada had all the time in the world. He's the one who stopped asking questions, who finally had to excuse himself and leave. But Prabhupada would have just continued on, explaining things, asking questions, and just being, you know, very natural and very friendly. And that's the thing that he remarked. You know, he noticed that from Prabhupada. That Prabhupada was very kind, very open. He had all the time in the world to, and that's what the sadhu. The sadhu is just there to give you Krishna. He's got Krishna, and he's prepared to give it to everybody, free of charge. You know, just come and take prasadam. Take the Prabhupada would cook himself. He would clean everything. He didn't impose himself. He didn't impose anything. No structure, nothing on anybody. You know, he didn't make them feel like you a bunch of, you know, low-class karmis or this. It wasn't like that. Prabhupada was just appreciative of people coming to him, and there was no judgment. You know, and I experienced that in Vrindavan. First times I saw Srila Prabhupada, many devotees have described this, how Prabhupada could see through you. He could see through you in the sense that he could see all your previous lives. And you could feel that. Prabhupada, when he looked at me, I could see that Prabhupada could see. But it wasn't judgmental. He was saying, oh, what a rascal, you know, you did this and you did that. And it was just an observation. Oh, okay, this is where you've been, kind of thing, you know. People describe where they've been. Oh, I've been in California, I went to Italy. Okay, it's interesting. You've been to all these places. So for Prabhupada was like that, just seeing, oh, okay, so you had this body, you did this, you did that, fine, okay. So now take the Krishna, you know, you've done all these things. So that's the main program. If a person can be disposed to make himself available just to give Krishna, to be that transcendental magnet, to draw people in and to give Krishna. Because Krishna is all attractive. I mean, you know, you say the word Krishna, it brings a smile to your face, right? I mean, there's such a beautiful name. I mean, you can't find a more beautiful name than Krishna, right? When you say Krishna, it's so extraordinary. So if we just say Krishna to people, they'll be attracted. No, you know, but we just have to be that person who's ready to give Krishna and have that freedom and that time to do that. So I don't know if that answers your question, or if you have more specific things that they're doing there in Gainesville and the Krishna house.
Well, they kind of reported, they laid out the process of what is very structured, but it also, I think, meets most of the elements that you were speaking about. So it's I think it corroborates what they've been doing, but it was a very effective presentation, and in 45 minutes, he was able to lay out what they've done, and then questions and answers came after for another 45 minutes, but it was just very, and they've put a book together. So it's, I thought, just a very kind of almost a call to action, but without, they're just presenting their experience, but the results are there. So I think it's very interesting that it's worth a you know, further discussion and a further look. That's I just wanted to see your input, but it what you've said supports what they've been saying also. So it's very nice to hear.
Yeah, one time they asked Prabhupada, was there a particular line, you know, that they could say to distribute books? Prabhupada said, just your sincerity. You know, people want to see someone who's committed to something, who's sincere, who has conviction. People admire that. They may not agree with you, but they'll admire your conviction, you know. And that admiration brings appreciation, and appreciation brings association, and then dedication. So these are, you know, elements that are there that people want to see. So if we can, you know, demonstrate that in a humble way, not in an arrogant way, you know, fire and brimstone kind of preaching or holier than thou, but just how genuine concern of people, you know, but not mundane concern, but, and they'll try to, you know, we can concern, oh, you're all this, you know, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to see where people are at and how to help them add Krishna to their existence. And of course, in Gainesville and Krishna House, they've, you know, developed it, and they may have certain you know, group of devotees, so they can have certain programs, certain things, because if you have several devotees, you can implement different things. But Ottawa, you have to see exactly what you have to work with. You know, you have that building, you have that person, you have who do you got, what is your manpower, what is your resources, and then you may adjust things one for another, you know. And then when people, and then you have to see what is the goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you want people to join the temple, become brahmacharis, dedicate their lives, or you're trying to just preach to people who are going to stay outside and just, add Krishna in that context? It depends exactly what you're trying to accomplish. But in our days in Ottawa, of course, we wanted to make devotees because, it's hard to win a war with no army. You need an army. So we wanted to distribute books. So we wanted to, and we were living in the temple. So, it was natural that we wanted others to come and join us. So, but in Ottawa, if someone wants to join right now, it seems that you really don't have that key person living at the temple, that if someone wants to join, where is he going to stay and what association is he going to have? So I think it would begin there. I don't know about the Krishna house. I mean, of course, they're a little bit like Ottawa. You're close to the Ottawa University. They're close to the Gainesville University. So they get a lot of students and they have a lunch program and like that. But you have the restaurant. So there's similarities there. You have the restaurant. And of course, now with the COVID, it's a little more difficult. But when things get more settled, then you can, see. But how you're going to run the restaurant, in which way. And then if you can, bring another program that when people get at ease and a little bit comfortable coming to the restaurant, they may not mind moving into a different program. They, like that's what we would also do. If we had regular customers and they got to know us a bit, and then we'd invite them to, we do have this other program that you could come, and it's a free meal and we give a presentation. And so sometimes, and there's mantra yoga. Now it's a big thing, mantra yoga, so you can say now we have mantra yoga there. So then, something that would encourage people to come and attend to that and then see it, a different thing. And then gradually they may start coming to the Sunday program. And of course, if you have someone living there, then you can invite them to, why don't you spend the weekend? So that's what happened with me. I saw the devotees came there and then, started coming a little bit of Sunday feast. And I said, hey, why don't you stay for the weekend? You could come Friday night and stay right up to the Sunday program. So then I started, coming. And then I saw, wow, this is so nice. So then I decided to join. And I knew then that, I could understand that I could join, But when I joined, no one knew. I just came in with my stuff. And Damraj was the president and said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm moving in. In those days, we were all hippies. You'd go and crash at someone's place and this place, that place. You didn't care. It was like open door, open house for everyone, right? So I thought the temple was a little bit like that. So I just came in, packed up, came in. So, but he said, oh, what are you doing? I said, I'm moving in. He said, did you ask anybody? I said, I had to ask someone? Said, well, no, it's okay. Come on. And I moved in. They probably thought I wouldn't last long. I was 17, kind of hippie with hair down to my back, and they probably go, okay, this kid, he'll stay for a week or two and then he'll disappear. But they didn't realize I was going to hang in there, So 40 some years later, still hanging in somehow. No other place to go. But that's a good thing. So yeah, I mean, and of course, when you meditate on these things, and Krishna will give you inspiration. The devotees were always meditating on how we're going to spread Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada was always pushing us, how to distribute his books, how to do this, and we get inspiration because we're meditating on these things, and Krishna would give us the buddhi, the intelligence. The dadi buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite, that Krishna gives the intelligence to those who are dedicated, surrendered to him. So, and it's not a calculated thing, I mean, sometimes we'd make big efforts and nothing would come. And sometimes out of the blue, someone would just join and we'd be like, how did you meet the devotee? Oh, I met devotee in San Francisco or this or that. And heard the Hare Krishnas were in town, or I saw you downtown chanting and found out this place is here. And, it would be, it's not a 1 + 1 = 2 thing. It's Krishna in the heart. Ultimately, we have to realize we're not preaching. Krishna's in the heart. He's the Paramatma super soul, and he ultimately inspires people. We can give the words, but that inspiration ultimately comes from Krishna. That living entity has been struggling in the material world, and Krishna has been following him as the Antayami, the witness. And now he said, okay, now you're ready. Go see those Hare Krishnas. And we can just be the instrument to that. We can just try to pray to Krishna, please make me the instrument, make my words, like Prabhupada said, please, if you brought me here to dance, then make me dance, oh Lord, make me dance. I'm like a puppet in your hand, right? I'm just gonna dance to the music you're gonna play. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to just be an instrument in Krishna's hands. And if we're sincere, then we'll be able to figure out, you'll be able to figure out how to accomplish that. And there's so many wonderful devotees there in Ottawa that you and the group can work and try to see each role if everyone can play. And something wonderful will come out of it for sure. We've made a lot of devotees in Ottawa, a lot of devotees came from Ottawa. It's a nice little town, So, yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much. Is there time enough for one more quick question?
Well, on my side, I mean, I don't go to bed till 10, so.
Okay. Well, hopefully we won't go till 10, but I saw a hand went up. Raja, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? I saw a hand going up there a few times.
Sorry, there's so many things that you were saying that were just resonating so nicely with me, and I'd raise it and then I'd put it back down and then something else would come up, and I wasn't sure how much time we had to. So I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but just to reflect or appreciate how much you repeated that it's this repeated association, and that's really nice, because sometimes we do have a hard time just to surrender right away, but through repeated. And I know in my personal experience and life, it's these relationships that people are offering this practical support or care or helping me, depending on the stage of life that I'm at. Somebody with little children may need something completely different than the brahmachari or brahmacharini, or someone who is senior in their life. So, this repeated association and so many different kinds of association, there's so much room for all of us to contribute and to try to give Krishna to each other. And so thank you so much. It was really inspiring.
Yeah, association. What do we mean by association? Association really should be that we're concerned for one another, that we're making sure that we're all doing good. Not that, I'm going to give class, I'm going to give you association and blah, blah. That's okay. That's like the protocol. But the real thing should be that we should all be concerned about each other, to see that we're enthusiastic, and that materially and spiritually we're doing well, that we're well situated, that we're content. When you're content, just like when your stomach is full, you can concentrate on other things. If you're hungry all the time, it's going to be very difficult. So how one finds his contentment compared to another, one may be a sannyasi, one may be a grihasta, one may be this, that's irrelevant. But let's be concerned about everyone's, and make sure everyone's content, everyone's getting what they need, and then they can progress in their spiritual life. And that is, the association that we're looking for. We're looking not to associate to be judged or criticized, but we want people who have some concern about us, that are demonstrating, and concern is a symptom of love. If I loved you, I'll be concerned about you. I'll be aware of what your situation is. I'll inquire, I'll inform myself. Lord Chaitanya was always inquiring about his devotees. When Rupa Goswami met Lord Chaitanya was inquiring. And when Sanatan Goswami came to Lord Chaitanya said, how did you get out of prison? Lord Chaitanya knew that Sanatan had been thrown in prison. So he was concerned. How did you come? How did you escape? What did you do? So yeah, we should be concerned for sure for one another, and be patient with one another. Be appreciative that we're all rare souls that somehow have taken to Krishna consciousness. And it's just the act of trying to be Krishna conscious is such a rare thing, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, as they say. It's a very rare thing. So we should try to encourage everyone and appreciate everyone that is taking to Krishna consciousness, and try to see how we can help that person, what we can do to help that person progress. Sometimes it may be not by not saying anything. Sometimes it may be by setting an example ourselves. Sometimes it could be by talking to the person, just on the friendly terms, and that would be wonderful. But for sure, we all need association. There's no doubt. The whole process is there. Even Krishna is never alone. You'll never see Krishna alone. Krishna is always with his associates. And when Prabhupada was on his deathbed, he said, "We're all the devotees." So, "Oh, Prabhupada, they've all gone back to their service." He said, "Oh, I feel so lonely, I think I will die." So that was Srila Prabhupada. He was a pure devotee. He was connected with Krishna, who we were nothing compared to him, just young devotees. But Prabhupada was expressing that I feel so lonely, I think I will die. He wanted the devotees around him, and he was always jolly and happy when he would see devotees. So that we have to remind ourselves of that association is very important. But how do we define association? So thank you for making that comment. It was a very good comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. So on that note, we're very grateful for your association. We're grateful for everybody's association, for all of you to join us with your feedback, with your presence, and we're hoping that we can get more of this association and realize the true meaning of this association, like you were saying, Prabhu. Because yes, it's a real thing. It's a reality, I guess. Back to the topic. So thank you so much, Prabhu, again for joining us, and we hope to have you join us again shortly.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me, and congratulations on your becoming the president of Ottawa.
Oh my goodness.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other, all of you in the near future. I always think of all you finally and funnily, and you're a source of inspiration. It's always nice when Sarda and myself go to see the Ottawa devotees. You're kind of a reflection of Niranjana Maharaj, taking his mood, very humble and sweet mood. So we're always very happy to come and see you and see Gornitai, deities that I worshipped and dressed and, carried to New Vrindavan one time. We brought the deities to New Vrindavan, brought them up to Nelly Lake up north in our bus. So we were like the Radha Damodar program. We used to we had this cool bus. So we had Gornitai on the bus, because we were such few devotees that the pujari, we brought the pujari with us, and he would do everything on the bus during the day, all the artiks, and then we'd go out and collect money and do our book distribution, all that, come back, and then we'd have a wonderful artik of Gornitai on the school bus. So a lot of fun memories. So thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Jai Prabhupada, and thank you again for your guidance. We're looking for more of it, right? It's our substance, actually. So again, we're looking forward to meeting with you again soon.
Okay. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Mature. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.
And again, congratulations. I see now Adisham Prabhu is here. We mentioned it, I think, when you were away for a bit. So, with wonderful news that we have your daughter has been born. Did you want to say something, Prabhu? Are you there?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you so much, all the devotees, for your blessings, and all the devotees. Thank you very much for your wonderful wishes.
How are you all
right
holding
now?
up?
I'm here. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah,
how are you all doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah, everything is fine. Like Gonita is grace, Srila Prabhupada mercy, everything is fine. She's sleeping right now. Yeah, she had some transcendental voice and vibration from Bonitai and all the Vaishnavas. Thank you so much, Haribol.
Jai, thank you, Haribol. We look forward to seeing her. So not to conclude, we're going to have a little bit of kirtan, some last minute darshan of Shri Gaura Nitai. Mother Kundalata is going to lead us in some kirtan.